All right. Welcome, everybody, to Probate Mastery Weekly Group Coaching. I'll go back to last week and offer you guys an apology. If you don't know, I'm living in my fifth wheel home office, and that comes with surprises, and it's a bit of a dynamic lifestyle. So last week was brakes on my friend's rig that I was with. This week is axles on mine. So we're in Idaho at a dealership waiting to get axles made. So I used all my real estate negotiating tactics on RV dealers yesterday. But I apologize for having a gap and missing last week, and appreciate your all's patience. David's had a pretty exciting week. I know we're going to talk about that. And Miriam, if you're here, Miriam got 3 listings this month alone with what she's learned from Probate Mastery. So, Dave, tell us about your week, man. It sounds like you're having a good one.
Yeah, I just got the notification that we have an estate with 60 some properties. They're getting rid of 40 of them. It wasn't a probate that I prospected, but through everything that we learned, she was a neighbor of a house in downtown, and I called her for at least a year with no response. She never picked up the phone, but I knew we had the right number because the landscaper guy would come by, said, "This is her number, call her." And then we looked up the list of properties that the estate owned in the beginning, and one of her houses that we drove by down here, the door was jarred open. So I took a picture of her and texted it to her, and then she responded. So there's an idea for you. From that was October of 2020. So last October. Until today, we've closed 3 of the state properties. I have 3 more under contract, but I've wholesaled all of them and made 81,000 so far. It's projected 130 in wholesale fees right now off of, that's just 6 properties. There's another agent helping her out that she's buying some of them too, but I'll probably get 15 of them, which is a blessing. And we're going through all the land right now. Yeah.
So, Dave, for anyone who's not familiar with your story, I think most people probably are, but David's obviously a broker and an investor, and he's able to break 7 digits by spanning both sides of the industry. So he's getting the off-market business as well as the on-market, if that's what's best for the family. But for anyone who hasn't heard David speak, if you haven't watched any of his videos and stuff, tell them, Dave, how you built your buyers list, how you market those and get them sold. And also talk a little bit about the way you structure. So, because a lot of times people are questioning, like, I want to buy houses, but my broker says I can't. And tell them how you separate your investor activity from your broker activity, and kind of what those deals are looking like today.
Yeah, so you go through a phase of maturity through this. So you start off with no list of investors, or you have a few people that want to pay you $250 per deal. And that's where I was in 2014. I had some investors that would say, "Hey, if you find me a deal, I'll list it with you for 1%. So to me, I was like, all right, that's cool. I needed a listing, so I'd take 1%. That's like 2012, 2013, 2014. I'm still working retail business. And then I found you guys. I was looking at the probate stuff because I stumbled on a few probates. And you start getting that idea, like you said in your course, that you're like, damn, I didn't know these things existed. I listened to you guys for probably a year and a half before I even paid for anything. Or whenever y'all started, I was in the front end of it. So through that, I built an investor list of people out of state, or mainly people that are buying and holding, because that's what you recommended. You separate your investment.
Yeah, let's talk about how you did it. So a landlord list is one of the best lists you could ever have. And I built mine organic through having conversations, asking title companies like who owns more than 12 properties, who's buying more than one a month, and just started to meet all the multi-parcel property owners in my market. Is that how you did it too, Dave?
Sort of, but I used to call for sell by owners and expireds and for rent by owners. So I've gotten most of my people from there, or just people that have bought a property from me through the short sale era. So I'm still selling houses to those guys.
Another way I've done really well is calling the property management companies who serve real estate investors. And it's, it's a very different property management company than the one that serves the nicest neighborhood. The property management companies that tend to specialize in have large portfolios of investor owned property, they can be really good to connect you with those folks. Another idea. One idea that I've shared here, it worked well for me. And Dave, I'm curious if you ever tried this. If not, I'd like for you to. Is building relationships with the commercial loan officers at community banks. A lot of folks don't realize that investors who are further along in their career are using community bank financing at scale. And those loan officers, they've written 20, 30, 40 notes for some of these investors. And they're happy to connect you because if you find inventory to sell to their clients, then they get to write a loan and they get paid. So it's an easy referral to get.
Okay. No, I haven't, but I'll look into it. That's the stuff I like to do. So yeah, it's good. Yeah, my clients I serve now are investors. I was the 7 to 8 listings a month probably 2 years ago. Now I'm happy doing one wholesale a month, to be honest with you. I'm averaging 22 to 38,000 a wholesale. I've got money in my bank account now. I mean, it's not like I'm chasing the tail of trying to pay for listings. The most expensive thing I pay for now is data. I'm not really into going to the courthouse and getting the information. I will pay all the leads, and then I'll match it up with the success data, if that's okay if I mention that, or other resources, and I'll just call them. But back to the investors, it's the best investors I have on my list. I've narrowed it down to only the buy and hold people now. I will not sell to a flipper. I have to know them, but I won't sell. Wholesalers won't make it on my list, and flippers really won't make it on my list because they got to pay 70% or less. These buy and holds, I'm getting 85 to 89% and buying a house at 50%. It's incredible, and you cannot beat that. And you don't need a whole lot of deals. You don't need to be the 100 transaction year guy. I mean, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. It's great.
He just happens to be the tile next to you, but a friend of mine, Gary Nash, is here. And Gary, thanks for being here, man. I know I owe you a call. I've been having some challenges on the road, but Gary might change your mind on what you just said of maximizing profit selling to flippers. So what he teaches, Gary has a course where he teaches investors how to maximize your exit strategy. So how to use design changes, architecture, and smart negotiating with and management of contracts to actually squeeze profit out of the deal that most people would never see. So Gary, I'm really curious to hear if you have a rebuttal like that. David's resistance to sell to flippers. What advice would you give him as someone who has steady deal flow? How does he find that right person like you that will actually pay that price, like almost a landlord price, because you know how to unlock the profit when most other fix and flip investors don't?
Yeah, I was excited when he said that he was selling to just buy and hold guys. I was like, golly, you're just leaving a whole bunch of money out there on the table.
Yes.
I'm sitting out here, by the way, this is my view. I don't know if you can see that or not.
That's awesome.
I'm in Santa Monica right. And
you're on your trip. I forgot. Wow.
Yeah. So my girlfriend, she went to go spend some time with her son. So I thought I'd jump in on this call just to say hi. But yeah, as far as these other investors go, a lot of these guys that I'm meeting, they don't really see the opportunities in these properties. They always just look at the property as it sits, and their whole game plan is built around that and not really built around the opportunity that it may present itself. Years ago, I did this renovation. I used to own a construction company, and there was this high roller out of Middleburg, Virginia, which is like one of the richest communities in the country. And he bought this property and he had it for 2 years. And after 2 years, he found out that he could actually cut that property up into 30 parcels. And I was thinking to myself, how in the hell do you buy a property and not know that before you go in? And he just got kind of luck of the draw, but he really kind of missed a huge opportunity earlier on when he could have, after 2 years. I mean, think about, the cash flow that 30 properties on one deal could have generated and the money that he missed over time. Now, he obviously made a killing after he found that out. But so, to bridge that over to the real estate investor, I bought a property in Norfolk, Virginia, and I wouldn't say it was in a war zone, but you could hear the gunfire from there. And it was a 4-bedroom dysfunctional 2-bath where you had to go through 1 bedroom to get 1 bath, and the kitchen was messed up. And anyway, I went in and redrew the house and just repositioned it. I paid $40,000 for it. And all in furniture and everything, I converted that place to a 6-bedroom Airbnb / boarding house cash cow with, I think I was like about 115,000 all in. I just refinanced it. I think I got like $165,000 out of it. Plus, now my mortgage payment's about $1,000 a month. I'm generating about $3,500 a month in cash flow, positive cash flow. So, and every other investor that I talked to, I actually tried to wholesale the deal before I, put the contract on it. And I was telling people, and they just said, "Oh, you're nuts. And you'll never make any money off of that deal. It's in a terrible location." And, I just said, fuck it. I'm going to just, go in there and change the layout and turn it into something that nobody else saw. And so those are the kinds of opportunities that I think a lot of properties present themselves. And, a lot of times if you can just squeeze out, an extra bathroom, you'll raise the value of that property exponentially. And this
That's
is
awesome.
where I,
Like that. So I just want to recap. You risk $40,000 cash to make $150,000 equity, to deposit $150,000 in equity. You've got $1,000 a month debt service and a $3,000 net monthly cash flow, right?
yes.
All right. So 40 grand at risk to make $150,000 profit and an extra $36,000 a year in perpetuity. That's a great deal. Now, what I wanted to get to, how the hell do we find you in a relative market? So Gary is teaching as fast as he can, teaching real estate investors his tactics and techniques all across the country. It's one at a time, right? It's unfortunately not everybody has the training and the experience that Gary does. So how do we find the Gary Nash in Des Moines, Iowa, in Fort Worth, Texas? What's your advice for how we can find a higher level of fix and flip investor who has a skill set similar to yours, or has taken your class? How do we connect with those people?
I would say that the flipper is, it is a hot market. Or if you can, get the wholesale guy, the average wholesale guy doesn't know how to do this. I almost think that if you could either see the opportunities yourself and list that property to a flipper, or present that property to a flipper or a wholesaler as what it could be. Because if you could look at that property and say, hey, this is not only this property, but this is what it could be, then you can entice a larger market. So I think it's really
I might regret this. I may be creating a mess for both of us, Gary, but I'm going to shoot from the hip here. What if everybody who's a CPE, everybody who's taken Probate Mastery, what if we had a license to your course where they could actually offer it to their buyers list for free, and then pay a licensing fee? Is that something? Because what I'm just thinking outside of the box, guys. Like, imagine if each of us had Gary's course, all that information that's in his head that allowed him to do that deal he just told you about. And what if we could send an email to our buyers list or to a cold list of buyers that were, investors that we're trying to build a relationship with, and offer them a $5,000 course for, and it's going to come at an expense to your business because we have to pay Gary a licensing fee. But how many people can see value in that if you train your investor base to be more profitable and to pay a higher price for your deals? Can you see where you get a return on that investment? And
absolutely.
Gary, sorry if I shot from the hip, man. We didn't discuss this, but that's something I see. Like, Dave, you could get Gary's course and give it to your, go to those bankers and say, hey, who are your top builder flippers, and meet with them, and then say, hey man, I met this guy in a group that I'm in a mastermind. He actually, he paid 40 grand for a house, made 150 on the cash out refi, and 3,000 a month. And he's got a course teaching you how to do it. What's your email? I'll send you a copy for free. And that comes as a marketing expense to David, Gary, but you're going to have a higher qualified investor as a customer.
I think it's a great idea.
They're going to have to be determined to go through
We need to figure out how to do that, Gary.
Yeah, that's good.
Rosie, I could see you pushing the hell out of that idea. I can see Rosie having every investor in Austin, like holding them accountable too.
Hi Gary.
Hi.
I'm Rosie from Austin. We actually bought a property close to lake. It's a foreclosure. So we literally acquired it at a loan value. We stopped the foreclosure and stuff. So we acquired it at 294. And if we did nothing to it, it's a half an acre lot, right? If we did nothing to it and just stuck the sign back in, it was 485. Okay, but it was next to the boat ramp, Lake Austin, all that good stuff, right? So you got now lifestyle there. So we actually rehabbed it, spent 30K on it. We're getting rental calls at around $3,500 a month. And we're actually choosing to not do that, but instead go Airbnb route that Gary is saying, because you got boat there, you know? And actually, we are thinking about putting a tiny house on the other 4-acre lot and cutting a fence out of it. Run Airbnb out of 2 units. Just put a tiny house on one side. Both have boat ramp access to Lake Austin. Now cash flow 2 properties in the same half-an-acre lot. So we have our conversation going on with HOA. Should we subdivide the lot or can we put 2? And we're trying to run the septic system tank. And of course, I'm not working alone. I partnered up with someone who is smart into construction. So Gary, the question is, can we refinance STRs like short-term rentals? Like I know investor cash out loan can happen if we have a rental proof on it. Can we do refinance by showing Airbnb?
What?
You have at
My
least 6 months of rent roll.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
think
go
if
ahead,
you have, yeah, I was going to say my experience with the short-term rentals is that the lenders don't like short-term rentals. So I would never disclose it as a short-term rental. I would just say that it's a rental.
Okay.
And I have 6 months of revenue and this is what I'm generating. And I would just leave it at that and I would just not mention, I would just say it's a rental.
I love it. I love it. And we picked a similar property for $60,000. And the only thing is, all the comps that have 1.5 bath stop at 9,500. It's like all in the outskirts. I always wanted to own a small 1,200 square footage property. If you convert that into a full bath, the resale value goes all the way to 145, 155. So we ran the numbers on it and we acquired it for 60 and all that good stuff. And we are planning on holding it for 6 months, then do the delayed financing, which means now that I bought the property for 60, I added 35, I'm 95, right? But I have a full back now. So the new value is 155. So taking the appreciation into the down payment and cashing out all my loan and running it as a rental. So that's my next.
Yep. My question on that one property, that if you could build a smaller rental unit on that same property, could you subdivide that lot?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If we build another house on it, we're trying to go the least investment route to start cash flowing right away. I'm definitely in agreement with you that when we eventually liquidate the property, it's probably a good idea to subdivide the property and have 2 quarter-acre lots and build 2 houses on it. And
I would suggest that you do split your parcel, do your subdivide your parcel before you do your refi. So when they do the cash out refi, it's on that subject property, and then you're left over with the vacant parcel.
Yeah, maybe it's a good idea to just rent out one side, and get the cash out refinance done, and then put another property on the other side and then Airbnb out of that, and eventually do both Airbnb.
Oh, I was going to ask you now, what is your intention? Is it just an investment property?
I feel like this is a good buy and hold.
Okay, I think what I would do is I would just make the one unit, the rental, Chad said, make the subdivision, cut that in half. Then I would refi the property that you have renovated because the value is probably going to be very similar to what it is right now.
Yeah.
And then you end up with a lot free and clear. And then that could be your own personal property. Or if you needed the cash, I would just dump the cash and let that pay for that rental, get as much out of that to a developer. I would go more towards somebody who builds houses because they'll pay a premium for that lot. And because they're looking for product and get that cash out of it. Those are the 2 plays that I'd be looking.
Okay, so
There's one more. Rosie, and I was going to propose. There's 2 more. I have 2 more ideas. One is the same thing, go to the builder, but offer them the lot. Once it's subdivided and it's not in the lien from your cash out refi, it'll be free and clear. It has nothing to do with it. You don't need the bank's permission. Go to a builder who has success on the lake and say, listen, I want to give you this lot for free for equity in the project. So I'll form a Texas LLC where you and I will be general partners, and we establish a basis value for the lot, the land value. We established a project budget, and then my equity equity is the percentage of land value divided by price. That's your equity in it. And then go pour yourself a drink and sit on the deck next door and watch him do all the work. In the interim, the other idea that I had, if this lot lies well, like if it's relatively flat, you can, and as long as there aren't restrictions, like covenants and restrictions could kill this idea, but there are now like Airbnb for camping apps. And one is called the Dirt, D-Y-R-T. The other is Campendium. Hip Camp is another. But I have friends who are buying raw land and paying it off in 3 to 4 months and then realizing 30 to 40% internal rates of return. There's no electricity, there's no water. They just put a damn tent site, a picnic table, and some rules up. So in the interim, if you're sitting on land that's in a prime vacation spot, there are Sprinter vans all over Austin because all those people are leaving California, coming to Austin. You can rent a Sprinter van pad on a lake for probably 60 to 80 bucks a night.
Hold on, so you're saying that I can give my land for Airbnb camping option? Like if the HOA doesn't mind, like I can make it available for people to pay me Airbnb to camp out there? Oh my God.
Yeah, check out the app. And then the other is Hip Camp, HIPCAMP, and Campendium, CAMPENDIUM. Those are essentially competing platforms that are basically the Airbnb of dry camping. Now it's more and more stuff is showing up there. You can get RV pads and lots of different things. But my friend Cody bought a piece of desert out near Joshua Tree National Park. It was paid off in 3.5 months. And she's making about $3,000 a month on a little patch of desert that she paid like $15,000 for. So if you have prime, if you're in that market where there's a lot of money and a lot of Sprinter vans and conversions and little Airstreams, as long as the covenants and restrictions won't prevent you from doing that, you could cash flow like crazy until he starts building. And then you just pull it down, like move your picnic table and let him build the house. So the best strategy for this might be a combination of all the things we've discussed. Like you could really squeeze every dollar out of it that way.
No, I'm thinking like we can subdivide right away and then refinance one side and then work on highest and best use on the vacant lot. Figure out maybe just how the cash flow now, don't spend a dime on it. And once it's time to liquidate, then do equity partner on it with a builder or find a builder partner who will build with you. Here's the reason I want to buy and hold this. So this is still a raw area close to, lake where, those trailer homes are, Airstreams are, and right in between somebody built a 3,500 square footage mansion home. So those homes are selling for 1.2, 1.7 million. And I was like, this is land alone gold, just hold on to the land. And as things build out, you got special HOA access to Lake Austin. That alone is worth something when people can Airbnb. You can give them a key to access the boat ramp area. So I'm certainly going to look into it.
Yeah, you might want to check the restrictions on that lake access, because if it's only for the one lot and you cannot get it, then you might be able to get an easement, so it's a shared access for that, so that you don't miss that. But I'd look into that as well. But I love that. I love that idea, Chad, because right now, I mean, you go to any campground, I mean, with the COVID, this is a new market. And Chad, you're brilliant for coming up with that, because, and of course, Chad's traveling across the country, and I don't know, Chad, are you having a hard time finding places to park that thing?
I put $6,000 worth of solar panels on the roof, so I take it wherever I want to go. Now I'm in BLM Forest Service, but yes, before I was completely self-contained, like as an off-grid rig, it's a pain in the ass, especially for somebody like me who hates planning and scheduling.
Yeah,
my mind is massive.
My mind is just rolling now. It's like, golly, what a market. Because you could, there's so many people out there that they can't get into these places, and they don't have solar panels. They don't know where to go, and that land also, how much would it cost to put a temporary electric service? Whenever you build a house, you call the power company and you say, hey, you set a pole up and you put a panel up there, you get it inspected, for less than $5,000. You could have service provided, and you could probably, have 4 or 5 campers on that little lot getting $60 a night. Hell yeah. With power, you probably get a little bit more. Just saying.
For sure. Yeah, if you provide hookups, like at least 30 amp, and especially if you have a septic, if you go ahead and put in the, let's just say you put in a 5-bedroom septic for a big lake home, that's, you're gonna be doing that eventually anyway. And that is, you'll be changing it from a land use of raw land. So you'll have a depreciable asset on it because you had capital expenditures. So it can actually help you it will be more beneficial from a tax standpoint than holding raw vacant land. But you could also drive your rates probably to $60 to $80 a night year round in that market. Cool. What a fun conversation. So I saw Miriam Cruz was here for a bit. I think she's gone now. Sorry, Miriam. We were in the middle of transaction engineering. Fed, I see Fed's comment. So Gary, if everybody gets your course, Fed has requested we all get cigars too.
Yeah, La Flor Dominicado.
All right.
I don't know.
Malcolm
Have you ever seen me without a cigar?
Not for a whole day.
Yeah, no, doesn't happen.
All right. Malcolm is patiently waiting. You've got your hand up. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask us. You had a question about VAs, I think. Maybe you don't have a microphone. So question was, could you touch on how you would have a VA approach doing the cold calling for your probate list? The framework that you provided in the training was excellent. I've made some very slight modifications, so my VA handles making the first touch. Talking to the person once the call has happened, I'll reach out to make the second touch to make sure the meeting isn't double booked and get answers to any missing questions. Do you think there's a flaw in this approach?
What I found out is that I have a VA or someone call an initial call, but they're not going to be as powerful as me on that initial call. They're probably going to get 25% response. Sorry, I went upstairs. So to me, I'd rather make that first call, even though I'm on the phone for 3 hours. I get a hold of probably 5 or 6 people. At least I'm getting the maybes or the yeses. I'm getting into the CRM. But the best person, the most committed person I've ever found on an ISA call is somebody with a farmer mindset. So someone I could hire to make that follow-up call that I don't want to make and to see where they are and see if they can set an appointment or at least have me call them if they feel like I need to call them again. So I've designed my probate process after initial call. I send my mail. I put them into my CRM and it communicates with them for almost a year, but it flags us to call every 21 days. Do I have to call? No, I just have a notification and I look at the name. And if I think I need to make the call, I make the call. But I think a VA, in my opinion, in all the years of experience, I think it's best to hire someone to make that bump just to see where they are. And if they feel like they could set an appointment on that call, let's do it. Yeah, of course, I want to set the appointment and get the deal on the first call. I do. But probate, if you're only prospecting probate, not expired for sell bonus, probate's going to be, in my market, 8 months. I have plenty of time to build a relationship up. I have over 400 leads in my system right now that eventually they're going to sell a house. That's a good job for VA just to bump them and see where they're at. A VA making the initial call, I don't think they're going to get the leverage that I'm going to get on the call because they're not going to ask all those aggressive questions. I'm going to get a little aggressive if I see a maybe there. If there's a no, I'm still going to ask the questions and try to beat the objections and conditions. So somebody you hire off the street for $1,300 a month or wherever they're hiring them, they're not going to be aggressive. They're going to be asking, do you have a house to sell? They're not going to be there. It's going to take you 6 months to get them there. So just make the initial call yourself and then get them in your system. That's all. I'm sorry, I got a little aggressive on that.
My advice is consistent with that. So the one thing I would say is I made the mistake early on of trying to train callers like ISAs and virtual assistants to actually do the exact job the same way that we teach in Probate Mastery. It was overwhelming, and I like very few people have the capability of doing that. Now we have done it with Kat's help, of course, with domestic callers in the call center but especially with offshore VAs, it's incredibly challenging. What I've found to be effective is, and if you have to, if you can't make your calls, Dave is suggesting do it yourself, and I'll agree with that. But if you're just trying to get the dominoes set up so you can come by later and knock them down, what we found is stay superficial. Don't try to take a VA or an ISA with a limited skill set. Don't try to take them all the way to closing the deal. Get them to say, hi, this is Chad Corbett. I'm calling from the office of David Fennell. He's out on an appointment today, but he wanted me to reach out to each family in Fort Worth, Texas that has lost a family member and is unfortunately going through probate. We spoke with the clerk. She let us know that your family was in that situation. Could I get you on David's calendar just so he can introduce our services to you so you know what help is available. And it's a simple ask. You're asking, can we provide value to you? And when you get the hand raise, that's when David comes into the picture, and he can do the interview. He can ask those leading questions and have that aggressive response and push them out of the pull them out of the probate quicksand.
So
So with VAs, what I've learned is stay superficial, keep it simple, and use them to indicate interest or need. And then you use the framework that you learned in session 3.
So this goes along with that same story that you have that mouse that they rescued after 15 minutes, and then they pulled the mouse out, dried them off, and they put them back in there. I mean, it's all over the internet a week or two ago. But when you said it, that's the first time I heard it. But that's the same thing. If you could get someone to make that call where you're sending a letter to this person because it's a yes or maybe, not an appointment set, or just get them in a CRM, so get an email and a good phone number, check the verified information, and yes, I have a house to sell. That's a $50 bonus to somebody. Now you're taking the deal from like an agent, from making a commission on that call, depending on that phone call, to make a commission or a whatever you pay them. Reduce it down to a $50 bonus just to get the information correct, or get them on your mailing list. Once that hits, you should flag yourself and say, I need to make that phone call because this person needs a call. Then your call list goes from 1,000 to 20 people. And I guarantee you're going to get one deal out of that every month, every 2 months.
I don't know what you trained in the course, which, I'll say again, was spectacular. And I had modified it just because I wrote a few different programs because, I have a programming background. So I wrote a few programs that pulls data from, 5 or 6 different counties, pretty much anything that's within a drivable range of me. So, I've got a lot of data, and that was the reason why I wanted to have the VA do the first touches so she can get through the data and just get me to the people who are actually interested in talking to me. But what you just said is, miles different from what I had put together. So I don't know how quickly this recording will be available. Hopefully, if today, awesome. But that was much better than what I had.
We're live streaming in Probate Mastery Alumni, our private Facebook group. So you can go watch it right. You can start back at the beginning.
Oh, great. I'll go log in.
The other thing I want to point you to, your name's not that familiar. I don't know if you've been on the calls where we've talked about Facebook marketing. If you have a programming background, I'm betting you can figure out how to skip trace that giant list you've built and come up with.
I built a skip tracer. I've already got one.
Okay. Shocking. So, do you have email addresses for those?
I've got emails, phone numbers, known relatives, neighbors, age, everything.
Perfect. So what I'd like you to do now is pull that into a saved audience in Facebook and run ads to them on Facebook as well. So just get that brand impression. I ran one yesterday. I was shocked. That personal best for me. I got 17,000 people to look at a video. 15,000 watched the entire 21 seconds, and it cost me 1 penny each.
Wow.
So you can make a hell of a brand impression 20, 30 times a day for pennies. If you take that big list you've got, pull it into a saved audience and just run. You never know what's going to be the right combination of copy and creative. And so you don't know until you get the right one. But if you stand in front of the courthouse somewhere where they're emotionally familiar with, because it was probably scary, intimidating, uncertain, and new when they walked in that courthouse to file for probate, that's a pretty good backdrop for a video. And then you can do a solid black or white bar above and below and closed captioning. But with a tech background, that should be pretty simple work for you. If you want to hear that idea fully discussed out, Kat might be able to drop a link in the chat right now. Otherwise, we'll hit it in the show notes. We've talked about this in long form several times in the last 3 or 4 months, and I won't belabor everybody with a 40-minute explanation, but we'll point you to that where you can hear exactly how to do that step by step. But that's the other thing I'd like to see you do to just shorten your list and get to the hand raises faster, since you have such a high number of leads you're backed up on.
I appreciate that. That was worth the price of admission alone.
Hey, Chad, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, back to Dave, his point with his virtual assistants and have a little trouble. One of the things that I've been working with is, basically bringing on partners. Some of my students, they feel like they need a little bit of hand holding. So what I do is I partner with them. If they go out and they find the deals, and this could work with Dave, I think really is he could do like a buy-in to a partnership. So you start them out, okay, you know, here's these, I'm going to provide you all this. I want you to get all this training, you know, start working this, you know, I'll cut you in on a portion of the deal. And as you get more experience, you get a bigger portion all the way up to, let's just say, you know, 49% of the deal. So instead of worrying about the virtual assistants not being able to, you know, they're not as motivated as somebody who is actually going to be part of the deal. I mean, does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah.
So you're proposing basically just probate bird dogs that become limited partners. And I think that's the important thing here is they're an LP, not a GP.
Right.
Really, it's a great idea and a way to scale up. There's just some proof of that model. Chris Chico used to sell wholesaling courses and do coaching. He quit on that completely because he saw the same need that you're talking about, Gary. Like guys are either afraid or they just never get into a position where they take action on their own deal. But what he found is he could motivate those guys and girls to take action on with his cash. They had no problem, you know, and it was all hypothetical risk because there were out clauses in every wholesale contract. But he actually shifted his business model where he never had to leave his office. He worked maybe 2 days a week and made more money than he ever made as an investor because he was working smart. So it's the, you know, work less, earn more, do good. So he was through mentorship, he was able to build an army of guys that just hammered the phones and paid for their own direct mail and beat the streets and pounded doors and drove for dollars. And they would bring it back to him and say, look what we caught. Now, what are you going to do with it? And then he would either wholesale it, flip it, retail it, wholesale it. But he got to choose the disposition strategy. He was the general partner. They were the limited partner. And he was, you know, making more money than he ever made and working less than he ever had. So for those of you who, you know, if you've got a stable deal flow and you feel like you could do more if there were more of you, what Gary's proposing is go find those folks and mentor them for equity.
Yeah, I think, you know, J.D. Rockefeller, you know, he thought the government ripped him off tremendously when they made him, when he had a monopoly on the oil business. The government said, hey, you have to cut that up. You know, you can no longer have that, but you get 25% of Shell, American, Exxon. You know, he ended up 100,000 times better than he would have ever been had he been, you know, the whole thing. So sometimes it's, you know, it pays to share. I mean, it really does. I think that's a great way to go about it. I mean, I love these people. They're running around. They call me all the time. Hey, I got this lead. What is it? You know, and, you know, I'm working with them on the training and, you know, I'm going to be making the money and I'm not even doing anything. I'm just, you know, they're out beating the streets right now. And I just talk to them once a week, if that.
You not doing anything? That's shocking, Gary. No,
Yeah.
I'm cutting on Gary because he's living his best life, but he worked his ass off to get into that position. So, Rosie, I just saw your hand up. Sorry, I don't know how long you've been waiting. Yeah, we're gonna make David unemployable soon. Like he's gonna be in an RV tagging along.
No, I was just having thoughts after Gary's conversation. He's absolutely right about partnering up with people because you can pay people less and it's an illusion that we are getting more, but we are applying more time too. You know, initially when I started with Probate Group, I started being very active with investor group, and I was originally bringing them deals. And this that I was just talking about, half an acre lot and all that good stuff, an investor brought it to me and he said, look, we had fun working on last 2 deals. I just want to work all the deals with you, you know, because he leveraged off things that I don't want to do. And he literally is a great connector, you know, has resources everywhere and has construction background. And I understand real estate market pricing and all that stuff. We're doing 5th deal together, and it just started with just one time partnering up on something and really, you know, giving in. So I would, even if I could, I wouldn't do without partnership because it's more fun that way if you find right people.
You don't have to share this if you don't want. I'm putting you on the spot, but if you don't mind sharing, tell us how you handle your partnership structure, how the operating agreement is written, how the shares are allocated, and if you've ever had any problems or if it's a really good structure for you.
I don't think I have had any problems yet, and I don't take it for granted either. Of course, I trust the process, but I verify it. And so we actually have a real estate attorney who draws up our joint venture agreement. So when we are working on a deal.
So just so so you have two LLCs, two separate entities,
Yes.
Rosie LLC and Joe LLC.
Yes.
Those LLCs sign a joint venture agreement,
To acquire the property.
right? And then that entity is what's on the purchase agreement.
That's right. That's right. And this is completely independent of my retail real estate business. When I am buying the property, I am the disclosure of the property. And sometimes, quite frankly, this last deal that I did, he had actually bought the property already and was not sure what to do with it. And he literally general warranty deed the 50% share to strategize the deal with me. And
This is what I think it was Donna 2 weeks ago. We were talking about this exact structure, and I proposed that, ease in, because it sounded like there might have been some inequities in the partner she had chosen. Like she was going to end up with the most experience doing the most amount of work. But what I like about the structure, and that's what I proposed for her, rather than jumping in and putting everybody on the same operating agreement. People have spouses, people have cars and drinking habits, and they bring lots of liability with them. So when their name is on the operating agreement with you, if they get divorced, if they get into it, they get a DUI, kill somebody, drunk driving, or they get themselves into hot water, that bleeds into your portfolio now.
that's right.
And that's why this individual LLC with a joint venture structure is a much, much safer and more affordable way to actually do these deals. So while we're talking,
yeah. And oftentimes people get confused. They're like, you know what, I don't know if I can do this, how much I'm going to pay an attorney. If you get in touch with the right resources, there are a bunch of investors out there who are already doing it, right? And you work with the right real estate attorney, he's not going to charge you an arm and leg. I think on simple deals, we pay $500 to $700 at closing, and sometimes $1,500 if it's more detailed. But it's a very clean cut. I tend not to do long-term buy and hold in joint LLCs because refinancing and all that thing can be. I normally own my rentals by myself, but it's more of assignments and flips, or maybe a short-term hold because there's a tenant in place. We have to honor the lease until they move out. So those kind of deals, I do joint venture agreement with real estate attorney. And it's a very simple process. It's not complicated. Matter of fact, it's peace of mind for both parties. You don't want to be personally involved in the business.
Absolutely. And so one thing to consider, Rosie, as you go forward, I think you said it was $500 is what your fee is, or $500 to $700. A lot of times a good a good real estate attorney who is, also acting as the escrow company, the closing attorney, they're going to make their money on the back end. And they're going to make their money on volume when they work with people like you. So a lot of times they won't even charge you for that legal work. You bring the partner in, you sit down, and just paper it real quick and be like, all right, man, we'll settle up whenever this one closes. And they're happy to do that work. There's so many times where I just wait for an attorney's invoice. I'm like, is he going to charge me for that? Is that going to come? Is the other shoe going to drop? Never shows up. Loyalty by putting the deals back through his firm for the closing, so he never invoices me for the legal work.
I'm going to have to consider that with this attorney because he does close our investment deals too. And I'm just like, I am like barely new in this group, and I'm just testing everyone, like how they are, how deep they're in the waters, who's really prominent in their work. But one way I did utilize his help is that I got him to take $6,800 off an HOA lien because those trustees, they don't answer me. I'm just a realtor, right? What the hell, right? And I got the attorney.
Damn it, Rosie! What did you just say? Go back 5 phone calls. Did you just say I'm just a realtor? Damn hashtag.
Thing did catch on pretty good attention. So I think brain because investors are like, huh? Oh, okay. I was like, yeah, I got your attention now. So I love it actually. I'm so glad you shared it. I completely forgot what I was saying before, but we're in agreement.
Sorry, I took us down a rabbit hole. Get back on track.
Whatever we were talking about, that's right.
Yeah. All right. We have 5 minutes left, guys. I do have a hard stop today. I don't see any questions we haven't answered. Does anybody have anything else they want to share? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm doing short sales, and I'm doing it the leveraged way, where I have a short sale negotiator, investor has a troubled seller, and let's see if we can do a short sale on it, right? I just tried it to see, if it works, and it's working. I'm closing 3-4 deals. How do I pick momentum at it? And I want to do it in a very leveraged way. And where it means there's a short sale negotiator in it, like they handle all the paperwork. I want to set up a portion of my business where This continuously just comes in and just runs as a short sale management section of the team. So how do I run that?
I've been waiting to make this course for like damn near a decade. This is how I cracked into residential real estate, and it is fish in a barrel because these folks are hopeless. The hard part is getting them on the phone. 71% of foreclosures in the last housing crisis never spoke to a single professional. Like surveyed post foreclosure, they were surveyed by third parties, and 71% were too embarrassed to reach out for help. They didn't call the lender. They didn't call a realtor. They didn't put a for sale sign in the yard. They just emotionally shut down, and their ego said, "Nope, this isn't happening. This isn't happening." And
they get confused. They don't even know what short sale is because bankruptcy lawyers are calling them, realtors are calling them, investors are calling them, God is calling them. They're confused. They don't know.
It's scoped out, and it's in a mind map. There's a magic question, but would you like to keep the home or sell the home? And we know the answer is always going to be, we want to keep it. It's our home. So, and we'll go down that rabbit hole with them. And actually, this is worth, I'm going to be late for my next call because I want to show you, and we can spend some more time on it maybe on the next call. I expanded on the mind map that I built that kind of shows you how my brain works when I'm doing a deal. And this is a really good example of, I cleared the cache on my computer the other day, not to log back into anything. Bad idea.
Yeah, as we're sitting here for Dead Space, my guy just scheduled me an appointment for probate. They want to sell today, so I guess I'll be doing that tonight.
All right.
I got to call him back and see, but
Hey, Chad, since we're in Dead Space, I had 2 questions.
I just got this up. I'll come right back to you. Sorry. Okay, so Rosie, here is how I handle this. And so the conversation path is there real estate? Yes or no? If there's no, then we can find a way to refer them. Yeah, if yes, then is there a motivation to sell? Would you like to sell the home or keep the home? So let's say if they want to sell the home, yes, we go this way. But if it's no, we don't. Is there debt? Yes, there is debt. Are payments current? No. Then we have a strategy for these. We have to empathetically and calmly lead them through an emotional conversation. We know what our line of logic is. We know that loan mod, bankruptcy, or a short sale or a buy and a lease back are pretty much their only option. If they want to, if they're willing to, and there is debt and the debts are not current, then here are all the options for every one of those people. So from this branch, no. There's equity, yes or no.
No.
If there's not current on payments, there is no equity. Then we establish a target date. So we can turn it into a rental and get them the heck out of it. We can short sale it, or we can use limited creative financing options. But for that phone call, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tactics that we can talk about. But we're slowly going to follow the branches in this conversation so they don't feel like they were told what to do or a strategy was forced upon them.
Yeah.
So the idea is and what I would recommend for you, my friend Aaron owns Roddy's auction service in Texas. So they pre-foreclosure data 2 weeks before any company in the country. They have a proprietary way and relationships in the entire state of Texas. They're based right. Well, you know Aaron. I've connected you guys.
Right? Yes.
FLS online, I think is what the. So anyway, you can get
that's online that I am aware of it. That's one of the very major ones in Texas.
Yeah, so if you get the FLS list and you use this approach where you call each other and say, listen, I know you're bound to be getting bombarded. This is a call from a social enterprise. We reach out to everyone every time we see they're in this situation because we've been able to help so many people. Have you got 5 minutes to see if I can stop the call? All right. So I just have one question for you. I mean, obviously you're behind. I don't need to embarrass you and ask questions and all that. You can share as much as you want with me. All I need to know is, would you rather me help you keep your home or help you get this sold and move on and then go from there? And a lot of times they're going to say, oh, we're going to stay here. Okay, great. So we've got some options. If you want to keep the home, do you need to live in it or do you have somewhere else that you could live? No, we need to live here. It's not a rental property. Okay. Do you have a lot of other assets? Is bankruptcy something you would consider?
Yeah.
No, we don't. A lot of times they don't want to do bankruptcy because it bleeds over into many other assets. And you just eliminate one option at a time until the short sale stands as the clear best choice.
Yeah.
They're going to take a 60 to 80 point hit on their FICO score, but they're going to basically be released of legal liability, and they're not going to have to lift a finger. You do everything. and you get a, you're going to have a limited power of attorney. So you slowly walk them through those choices without overwhelming them with, you obviously wouldn't show them something like this, but you can walk them through those choices where they basically have to, there's only one option. And with leadership, they'll get to that conclusion very quickly, usually in a 30-minute conversation or less.
No, it's
Without
really good.
leadership, they'll
Yeah.
go for 12 months until the sheriff throws them out on their ass.
No, it's really good. They do take long time to close, but it's pretty effortless process once you get all the paperwork going. And I actually did a short sale on a probate. It was heirs losing the property to foreclosure. Yeah, we just closed it last month. And I'm very encouraged on how effortless this process is. It's like how important it is to have a great short sale negotiator person on the team. I'm pretty happy with what I have, but I don't know if it's a key determining factor. What is it, like major difference between one over the other, or what I should be looking for? I'm just taking what I have in hand right now, but I would like to make sure I have all the right pieces in place to keep it going.
So if you look at for sale by for rent by owners, look at Craigslist, look at Facebook Marketplace. If it's in a residential neighborhood, like a good school system, and there's no furniture in the picture, you probably got yourself a short sale. If you get the pre-foreclosure list, you probably have yourself a short sale. Talk to every lender you can, and I mean every damn lender you can possibly get in front of, and say, when you have to decline somebody for a refinance, send them to me. And you for a free consultation. And even if you do that with the real estate attorney who's serving you so well, offer a free phone call with you and the real estate attorney to discuss and discover the options for somebody who's declined on a refi. Because one of the canary in the mine, that's one of the canaries in the mine. If somebody is trying to refinance and they get declined, they're in financial trouble already. They've gotten the refi. So those are junk leads to mortgage lenders. But if you can get those junk leads and then bring the buyer back to that mortgage lender and convince the buyer's agent, or if you're double in, convince them to use that lender because he's already familiar with the house and already familiar with the case, and it'll be way more efficient than using fucking Rocket Mortgage, then you can repay him by creating a cycle of referrals. He refers the business he can't do to you. You go turn that lemon into a glass of lemonade, pour a shot of vodka in it, and hand it back to it.
And all these loan officers I work with who lend to at a large scale to my buyers, are these the right contact, or I need to be reaching for someone else?
I don't know. Anyone who's doing refi.
Okay,
So anytime they decline, anytime that they have to decline a refi, that should be a lead to your business. And then the agreement should be, you turn that lemon into lemonade and then put it back their way so they can do the acquisition.
Yeah. And you can get one of your investors to put an offer on it. If you're running close to the short sale, you can get your investors to submit offers, and there's a whole new opportunity after that. Yeah.
That was my process. We would upload to MLS within 5 minutes. I would have an offer submitted. We would submit that to the asset manager, and it would stop the foreclosure in its tracks. It would go from this division of the bank to the special assets division. And we stopped the clock, like we threw the brakes on.
What about divorce leads?
So you can't, there's no list that you can buy. There are some people that claim to have it, but they're selling it based on decree, not on filing. So it's a useless list because the divorce is over. The way to do this is organically. So you do this by networking with divorce attorneys. They're not, if you get to know counselors, you can, but there's laws around that, HEPA, around marriage counselors. Lenders can sometimes get you into divorce leads as well, because when they come in to try to refi in one person's name, that's a leading indicator to divorce. But the best way is just organically find ways to provide value to divorce attorneys. And, with probate, with estate planning attorneys, we bring them in and say, hey, here's a referral. This person needs an estate plan. It's unlikely we're going to go get one of our friends and be like, hey, man, can you divorce your wife so I can meet this attorney? Like, hey, this is my friend Jim. He's going to get divorced next week because I really wanted to meet you and see if I can get some referrals. Like, that one's probably not going to work, right? So we've got to find ways to provide value to these divorce attorneys to help them through their own small business struggles, so they'll help us with ours, right? So bringing them referrals probably isn't feasible in the divorce, but what we can do is find ways to make the business they already have more efficient, give them a platform. So if we create that community Facebook group, for life transitions, we have a divorce attorney in there talking about it, or maybe we create a separate, a divorce support group, the Dallas Fort Worth divorce support group, where every Wednesday night you meet, and that attorney, you have an attorney, you have a counselor, you have people who can help families that are in that space. They find you can target them. I can build a Facebook audience in seconds that will show you everyone who's currently in the process of being divorced. And that's all the way back to the very beginning of my statement. I just contradicted myself. So I can show you how to do that, but there's not a company where you buy a list, but it's organically. So find ways to help those firms be more efficient. And the main way is by keeping the level of count on each of their cases. And we can do that by being an intermediary. So we can be the bridge, the peace bridge between the husband and the divorcing parties, and help the firm get away from all the back and forth about the real estate and negotiating. Every single conversation has to be A party, B party, C. If we can be a trusted intermediary that they can trust, that we're not going to get in the way of their legal process and they're not going to get in the way of our sales process, that's the way to do it. A friend of mine, Kelly, Dr. Kelly, has a course, and just like Gary, I don't have an affiliation, but I trust her, trust that she's the top expert in the country. It's divorcethishouse.com. And she is a Ivy League educated divorce attorney who's also a staff professor at Vanderbilt. And she trains live, I think 3 times a month. But that's a really good system. And it's very similar to our approach on probate mastery. That's the reason I've never made the divorce course, because she's already done it. And she's not somebody I just don't care to compete with her. I'll support her. So if you want to take a deep dive on that, it's divorcethishouse.com. And we're 9 minutes over. Malcolm, I'm not going to leave you hanging, man. So go ahead and unmute.
I appreciate that. It was a 2-parter, but I think you already answered it, because, don't take this the wrong way. Please don't get mad at me. You were filming the video and I just happened to see one of the folders for Foreclosure Mastery. I was like, oh crap. Okay. Maybe he's dropping something on that. The second question was, and hopefully it's not too long. So in the parsers that I created, I've got a lot of data that comes back. Some of the cases are coming back pro se, and I would say roughly maybe 65 to 70% are coming back with people that have an attorney. And I was just wondering, what your approach would be if the majority of the data that you got that came back were people that already had an attorney for their case. Because pretty much what I'm trying to do is trying to find a way to provide value with the estate planning attorneys that I've built relationships with here. And if a lot of the cases that I'm getting back are coming back, the opposite of pro se, I just wondered, what you would do in that situation.
So you have a high percentage already. Like in most markets, 80% have retained an attorney, 20% are pro se. So it sounds like you have 40% pro se already, right?
Give or take, I'd say, yeah.
Okay, so let's find ways to turn those into referrals and into trusted relationships. Let's go to those attorneys who you want to build a relationship with, sit down, build a checklist that is the, Allegan County probate checklist. So from the day that somebody passes away or the day after the funeral, all the way through until the final distributions hit the heirs' bank accounts. What are each and every one of those little tasks? Anything that requires an attorney that's a legal task is colored red. Everything else is a different color, black or blue or green. At the bottom of that in the footer, you've got the attorney's firm name, the attorney's name, the firm name, the address, phone number, website, whatever they want. You're going to offer, in exchange for them helping you create this piece, you're going to put one in every direct mail piece that you send to these families. And you are legally helping them circumvent an anti-solicitation law to earn business for their firm. So they will be happy to help you with this. Okay. They should see immediate business from it. Your letter is you'll change your letter up where it says, on the back of this letter, you're going to find a probate checklist. I did notice that, we reach out to every family in the county each month. One thing that's a little bit alarming to me that I noticed is there's no attorney of record on this probate. And if you flip this letter over and look at this checklist, everything in red is all the personal liability you're absorbing as the personal representative. What a lot of people don't realize is personal representatives are fiduciaries, and that does come with legal responsibility and legal liability. So if there's any way we can help you, please call us or call the firm on the back of this sheet. And something along those lines. So you write a letter that educates them and then stirs up a little bit of fear. And then the call to action is call me or call the attorney. Those attorneys will respect the hell out of you. Unless they've been on this call. No one in your market's ever done that. and that'll get you some referrals and some relationships generated very quickly. I am going to run and get to the next disappointed person who's 13 minutes, been sitting there twiddling their thumbs for 13 minutes. But this is such a fun conversation. We
Good
had
job.
a lot of good stuff today. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for always keeping it interesting. And we will see you next week. Have a great day.
Thanks, Gary.